all of my devices. The battery is low in all of my devices. My tablet is on 7%, my phone is on 5%. And somehow I feel like it's difficult for me to stand here and really charge them. But anyway, that's not the point. But hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel again. So in today's video, I'll be doing a Bible study with you. Look at me growing up. Oh my God. So I think in the previous video I did mention that I'm doing a Bible study on the book of Daniel, which is about to start in 30 minutes. But I hope and pray that I'll be able to do this within the 30 minutes, because shooting for YouTube is not easy. Oh my God. A lot of YouTubers make it really look simple and easy, but nah, this is not easy. Okay. So because I've read this chapter before, so I'm not going to do that with you, but I'm just going to speak on verses that spoke to me, yes. So what I do, like I mentioned in the previous video, that I read the whole chapter and let us assume that this is the second time that I'm reading this chapter, yes. So what I'll be using is that I have my ESV version. I also have my New Living Translation, which I think maybe I should use and not use this one. I also have a new Bible in the block, the new Bible in the family, which is the King Hope Christian Standard Bible. I've really been enjoying reading this one. So I love it. And I also have like my notes, my commentary right here in my tablet. Yes. The other thing is that I have my phone, which I'm recording the audio with, and then there's a camera, and then there are lights. Also my background. But yeah, let's just assume that we have read the chapter, which is the book of Daniel. I'm really fascinated by this whole book. I think for the first time in reading the book in the Old Testament, I'm actually going out there trying to find resources about the prophecies of Daniel and things like that. But I think I would actually, as we get there, I'll talk about them on what I did find. So I'm going to start with verse 8. And yeah, so Daniel chapter 1 verse 8, which says, let's read it first so that it's... But Daniel was determined not to defile himself by eating the food and wine given to them by the king. He asked the chief of staff for permission not to eat these unacceptable foods. These unacceptable foods. But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the food and wine that were given to him. Maybe the reason could have been it was offered to idols, or they were not following the same dietary plans that God had commanded them according to Leviticus chapter 11. Because do remember that God told the Israelites what foods were considered clean, what foods were not considered to be clean. So I think this is one of the reasons that he politely asked, hey, I don't want to eat the foods that you're eating. Who knows, maybe they were offered to idols and all of that. Daniel made this decision about his faith. He remembered who he was in a very compromising situation, and he kindly asked, hey, is it possible for me not to eat this? Is there a way for me not to take part in this? So my question to me when reading this verse would be, have you ever faced a situation where there was compromise in front of you, and did you ever choose to compromise, or were you because Daniel could have like rebelled and not, he would have been like, no, I'm not eating this food, your food are not holy, they're offered to idols, you cooked pig and I don't eat pork meat, things like that. But he did not rebel. He instead asked for permission kindly, and he was like, hey, can I please not eat this food, because he was committed to God. I think that is one of the things that is fascinating to me about this verses, is that Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, like, they were committed to God. And one of the things that I thought about is the fact that it wasn't just the 4 Hebrews in who were exiled into Babylon. I hope so. But there were other Jews who were there with them. But these 4 made a decision that we are not going to compromise ourselves. You know, they made that commitment. And I love how God is really kind, that he also, like, he helped them, he gave them favor in the sight of the eunuchs, you know, the chief, the people who were in charge of them, just making sure that they were abiding by the rules and learning from all the literatures of Babylon and everything else. So he gave them favor. It wasn't just that thing where God threw them, you know, like, you know, I told you not to eat things, so I told you not to eat unclean foods and things like that. He did not just leave them there, but he was there with them. He walked with them. He gave them favor with the chief. What is it? A chief staff. Yeah, in this one is written the chief staff. So yeah, so that is my question. Have you ever, I'm reading my notes, sorry. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to stand firm in your faith? I have been in a situation where I had to stand firm in my faith. But yes, I have. Like, I'll be around a group of people where they are like drinking, and then I'll be like, no, I don't drink. And usually it will be like, there will be like free alcohol, but you drink. I'll be like, no, I don't drink. You know, things like that. Those type of small things. And one thing that I love about doing that is that it also holds you accountable. You know, that you know, hey, these people, they know that I don't do this, and I have to stand on it because of who I am and who I'm serving. So maybe it could be that you are fasting, and I know this happens to me a lot at work, that when I'm fasting, that we'll have this big breakfast, and and then like with everything, the best breakfast, and then you're like, but yeah. So the thing is that I do see also about Daniel is that he did make a decision to obey God ahead of time. You know, like, doesn't mean you have to like maybe like go through a plan or something, but as you're assessing the situation, as you're assessing maybe how things are gonna go, maybe you could like, okay, as these people are saying this as people, but I'm not going to take part in this. Maybe you can make that decision with yourself, that I'm not going to take part in this, I'm not going to do this, and not in a way that is like rebellious, not in a way that is demeaning to other people, not in a way that it will make other people feel bad, but in a way that you know, okay, I'm going to do this because this is what God requires of me, and this is how I show my respect to God. So yeah, verse 9, which says, and God gave Daniel favor and compassion in the sight of the chief eunuchs. Even though Daniel had a difficult choice, God helped him by giving him favor with the king's officials. Like, yeah, this shows that when we obey God, he provides what we need, which is sometimes a very hard thing to understand. Like, sometimes we want to see how God is going to show up, but other times you have to make a decision. Sometimes you do see, oh, okay, cool. Like, sometimes God will reveal to you, sometimes he doesn't. Most of the time he doesn't. You just have to throw yourself and just believe and trust that he will carry you. Okay, the application, how can you apply this in your life? When you stand on God, he works behind the scenes. You know, when you stand on God, he works behind the scenes to make sure that everything works together for your good. Sometimes it may feel weird, it may feel strange when you're doing that, because I do remember as a church together currently we are doing a fast, and in that fast we are not eating meat, and then now I had to make a choice of not eating meat in a work function. So I think in that time I was engraced with the ability, I was engraced by God not to really desire it, you know, or just to have that ability of not taking it in my plate. And sometimes I didn't have a lot to eat. Honestly, I didn't have a lot to eat because I realized that as a country we are not really catering to other live eating choices, you know, because like I do remember that when we went as a if let's say I was doing a Daniel fast and then we went, what was this, Tawabusibu Lodge? I think it's Tawabusibu Lodge. There were a lot of like vegan, vegetarian options there, but in this hotel that we are staying in, there were not a lot of options. Like everything had meat, everything had all the processed foods and everything. So I think if I did that then I would have a lot of options, but this time I didn't have a lot of options. I remember that what I had on my plate, it was, sometimes it could have been like potatoes and cabbage. Well, other people were indulging in a lot, and you are like, oh my God. But I had to be strong. I think God did engrace me in that time, in that process, just for me to be able to stand in my word, to stand in what I know I had to do. Like, yeah, to be like, yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I love meat, I love food, but this is my sacrifice, you know. So God does engrace us when we make that decision, when we take the first step. He helps us in all those things that we want to do, or we have committed that we're actually going to do. So yeah. And the other thing is that we have to trust God that he'll give us favor to obey him. He like, if you want to do a fast, let me say, and you want to do a 6 to 6 type of fast, wait, did I eat today? Like, you want to do a 6 to 6 type of fast, you have to pray and ask God to help you do it. Like, help me. And most of the time is like when I'm doing a fast like 6 to 6 or something, is that when I get hungry, and then I pray, I'm like, God, please help me. God is hungry, okay? If you don't show up, I'm gonna eat. So usually sometimes I would just forget about food, or I would be full by the Spirit. And then yeah, so when you are going or doing a godly activity, or any particular activity, not just a godly activity, do remember to ask God to strengthen you, and not just to focus, especially when you're fasting, don't just focus on food. If you're saying, hey, I'm staying away from social media for maybe I'm giving myself like 20 minutes on social media for the whole day on all these 5 apps that I have on my phone. Usually, pro tip with that is that in my phone I've actually hidden all the apps, like, and it has been really working really well for me. I've hidden them, and maybe after a certain time I'll unhide them, you know, I will reveal them, just saying. But I think my lips are really, really dry. The other thing that we have to remember is that obedience brings favors. Yeah, in this context, yes, obedience brings favor. So don't ever think or have a thought that when you're obeying God, that God is just going to, sometimes he will, but in this context that Daniel and the other 3 Hebrews, they did receive favor, that what they requested, it was given. Their request was met. Okay, so do remember that yeah, maybe all you have to do is to ask, be like, hey, so I cannot do this, this is the decision that I've made, you know. Yeah. So verse 17, which says, as for this, for you, so God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Okay, so Daniel and his friends, I would say, went to a new area, like a new place. They don't know much about what's going on there. They were captives and everything else. And this could actually speak, like for me, I think this spoke to the area in my life which is my job, things like that, that this is a new place. I've never been here before. Like, I've worked in a church for such a long time. Like, I would say all of my life I've been in the church. Then all of a sudden God takes me to corporate, and then this is a new area. I don't even know the inner workings of how things are done. I didn't know how to write an email, like kind regards. What do you mean kind regards? Why do they have to be kind to your regards? Things like that. I'm just making an example. But yeah, that where they were, God helped them. It could be in a new area in your life and things like that, that God gave them wisdom. But you have to see that how God gave them wisdom. First of all, they made a decision to be obedient, to choose God. So meaning that in your life, in your personal life, you have to make a decision to choose God. You have to make a decision to obey God, that God has to be first in your life. So that that even when you come into an area that is not familiar to you, you are able to remember and to trust, oh yes, God is with me in this. He has given me an understanding, He has given me the wisdom. And even in things, not just in dreams, even in things that other people cannot understand, that God has given me favor. He has given me the ability for me to understand those things. Like in the case of Daniel, he was given amazing, incredible dream interpretations. Like as we would be like doing this Bible study, we would see where Daniel prayed and then the angel showed up and he explained to him a certain a prophecy or a dream that he had. So even in your life, like different areas that you are in, maybe God has given you amazing and incredible wisdom. And this, when I'm usually reading this, this already informs my prayer, like how I'm going to pray. Like even now, I'm actually thinking about like different areas of my life. Like, okay, cool. After I'm done with this, how am I going to pray? Like, and what I wrote for my notes is that Daniel and his friends were gifted by God with wisdom, knowledge, and skills. The other thing that you have to do when reading the verse is just to point or to highlight some of the words and some of the things that the verse maybe is saying. Like in this verse, it talks about how God gave them wisdom. He gave them wisdom, knowledge, and other skills. Like when you see that, how would you apply that in usually, like I would write, let me show you what I do, even though maybe you won't see it. I don't know how I'm going to edit this, but like when reading this Bible, okay, let me charge this. I have skill. When I write down things like this, they usually do help me to remember them. I have skill, I have wisdom, I have understanding of visions and dreams. So I have those words that I will actually be able to retain. So this says, true wisdom comes from God, not just from books or education, but God is able to give us the ability to understand. He's able to give us skills. Like even when I think is it Exodus? I don't remember well. I'm not really. I'm trying right now currently to actually read more of the Old Testament, but I think it's when they were building the temple, and then God gave them the skills and the designs, on how they should do that. Like we can see the creativity of God, that God is able to give us creativity, Yes. So James chapter 1 verse 5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously. Like if there's any area in your life, in area of my life that I need God's wisdom, the Bible says that I should ask God and I should ask him because he gives generously. And when you pray such prayers, have faith. Believe that God has given me wisdom, God has given me skill, God has given me understanding. Because sometimes I do remember when I'm currently taking a sound course, is that honestly I just want God to make me understand some of the things that I'm reading or learning and things like that. But sometimes you don't just get there. Like, you don't just understand. Maybe God, you read something and you understand it, but God wants you to go through that process. Sometimes not as simple as we would want it to be. When you want to make a particular decision, do you pray about it first? Like, do you ask for wisdom? Do you ask God to help you? And in that asking, do you believe that God will answer you? I think for me, I have asked before for wisdom, and then the problem comes when I have to believe for God has given me wisdom. The other thing that I think sometimes I'm guilty of is trusting that I can hear the voice of God. Yeah, so I've been there where I have to trust that I can hear the voice of God, because sometimes you ask for things and you ask God to direct you, but you don't trust that God can speak to you, and you don't trust that I can honestly hear the voice of God. Because the Bible also tells us that my sheep know my voice, and sometimes the enemy will actually make you believe that you're not the sheep of God, which you are, And yeah, so in your life, in any area of your life, with your finances, in your eating, and have you ever like asked God for wisdom? And the answer for me, yes, I have asked God for wisdom. And in some areas or in some situations where I have believed that I have the wisdom of God, that's when I've seen like an amazing and incredible results. Yes, I've learned that God cares about every area of our lives. So do remember that God is a source of wisdom. God has made you, and He cares not just about you going to church on Sundays, but in all areas of your life. Like, God cares about them. So do remember to ask wisdom from God. All areas. What do you eat? How you should eat? Because there are other people that God has let them like don't eat meat completely. The other people that God will be like, don't eat that, don't do that, don't be on social media, I don't want you in social media. And like, let us learn to ask God for wisdom. Let us learn to ask God for that guidance, like that is tailored to who we are and who He wants us to be. And in that asking, remember to be obedient and to follow His will. Okay, don't just ask, but have faith that God will lead me. And if you're not sure, keep on asking and He'll make it clear. Our God is a very, very loving God, and He understands that sometimes He'll speak 1,000 times and we may not get it, but do remember to ask Him, and to ask and trust and believe that when I'm asking, I'm going to hear His voice, and I trust that when He speaks, I'm going to hear Him, because I'm His sheep and I know His voice. So yes. So we are still doing Daniel chapter 1, verse 18 to 19. Right now we're doing chapter verse 18 and 19. Okay. So at the end of the time, the king spoke with them, and among all of them, none was found like Daniel. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king. One thing about reading the Old Testament that I don't like is the names. Okay, like the names. The names are so difficult, and sometimes the places, the rivers, and you're like, oh my God, how do you pronounce a word that starts with X and then the next letter is an R or a T? Like, how do you even say that? But anyway, the explanation is that after 3 years of training, Daniel and his friends were better than all other young men in wisdom and ability. This shows that God's way leads to success even in difficult situations. Like, yeah, like even in those type of situations where you think like where God is putting you, like where God has you in the desert, most of the time the results of Him doing that are amazing. Like, you see that you're more kind, you find that there is no anger, you find that you have more faith in God, you trust Him better than anyone else. Like, you find even in those situations where the outcome or what you're experiencing was not good, but it was good because of the results that you experienced. So yeah, I know it's really hard for me even to admit, like, to be like, oh yeah, God, I see what you did there, that's amazing. I'm like, but God, you made me suffer, you know. But this shows that God's ways lead to success even in difficult situations. As Psalm 75 verse 6-7 says, promotion comes neither from the east nor from the west nor from the south, but God is the judge. He puts down one and sets up another. And sometimes I feel like we forget that we have to do, I think it's in Colossians, I don't remember where in the New Testament, I think I'll find the verse, that we have to do everything unto the Lord. That yes, the boss may be in front of me, we should not do that thing where we only do our job or any activity that we have to do when people are watching us. Like, we need to do everything unto the Lord, which is the hardest thing ever. Like, God, I'm tired, and you'll be like, unto the Lord, I'm doing this for Jesus, I'm doing this for God. And that would actually help you to do everything in your utmost best, remembering, okay, I'm not doing this for my boss, I'm doing this for Jesus.